And we're back. We're here to vote for and nominate the best action adventure game of 2020, which is such a very large, encompassing genre of game. But
this is a meaty one.
Yeah. This is
gonna be tough. This is gonna be a tough one. A lot of good games on this list.
And Hyrule Warriors.
Hyrule Warriors and Musu. I don't know. Is it? I guess.
Yeah, I'm not really sure if you consider that action. Well, yeah.
Are you serious?
It's nothing but action.
It's literally
That's
qualifies.
why I started
30
talking,
hours.
and I was like, no, I'm gonna stop talking about it.
It's definitely an action game. It's definitely an action
game,
adventure game.
Whether it's a good one, that's
Yeah,
to be debated, but
I'm not.
What is this? Are y'all fighting?
Yes.
I'm gonna be
Yes.
sad.
You are about to be sad.
Yeah, you're about to cry, dude.
Guys, I mean, there's only one real right answer in this category.
I love Demon Souls too, but let's hear other picks.
don't say Marvel's Adventures.
Resident Evil 2 is clearly the best action game.
Hit the gavel! Hit the gavel!
Wait, what? Huh?
Just do it. Trust me. It's fine.
Mm,
Oh, come on.
Wait a second. How is
Denied.
How is Ghost of Tsushima not on this list?
I don't know. Maybe you didn't put it on there.
Are you sure? I don't know.
Put it on there
It
now.
might have just appeared suddenly, magically.
There it is.
I'm nominating Animal Crossing because tag with nets can get pretty visceral.
Ah!
Greg is going to have a meltdown if you just.
I don't have a meltdown now.
I think we would definitely be trolling the universe if we give this award to Animal Crossing, but there's better action adventure games out there, David, than the net mini
I
game.
mean, it's fun for the whole family.
I agree, but
The whole
I think
No, you're right.
I
You're
think
right.
Demon Souls is a much better action adventure game than Animal Crossing New Horizons.
It sure
So-
is.
In the span of a week, I had reviewed Demon Souls and Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity, and so this was something. This was something that came up in my mind as I was coming out of the fallout for those two games. Do you know why I rated Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity higher than Demon Souls?
I have no fucking idea, but I can't wait to hear this.
Because it produced feelings out of me other than rage, because it moved its style forward thoughtfully and wasn't afraid to fix things,
Up the frame.
because it has character and soul in a way that Demon Souls is.
Soul is in the title.
It is in the title, but I'm talking about an actual feeling rather than a mechanic.
The integration of lore into the Souls gameplay is pretty awesome. I have to be honest with you here, okay? I've never liked the Dynasty Warriors style games, but I skipped the first Hyrule Warriors because I was like, even though it's Zelda, it's still that.
I don't like that one very much. I like this one a lot.
So Age of Calamity, I bought because, hey, Breath of the Wild prequel, sort of. And I still fucking hate that type of game. It is just the most...
I mean, it's
so
the opposite
boring.
of Demon Souls, David.
It's
the opposite of Demon
Yeah,
Souls.
it is. I'm getting into that. It's
Sorry.
damn boring. It's so damn boring. The missions take forever. There's a ton of slowdown. There's just this constant meaningless chatter that amounts to babble. Like, I was really hoping to get into this story, but
This
I did
game,
not.
just slow down when you're fighting, David. I saw slowdown in cutscenes.
Yeah, I didn't. I really went into this wanting to like it and give it a fair chance, but
I've never
Man.
gotten out of a game so fast. I played through the first thing and I was like, I'm in handheld, and I'm like, did I just see slowdown, frame drops in a cutscene?
Yeah, this is Zelda. I care about the world. I think they did a great job. All these little touches, the same sound effects that play when you do certain things in Breath of the Wild play here. I love the idea of how they did the story with this time-traveling robot thing, this kind of silent observer, even though it's clearly BB-8.
Or Baby Yoda.
It's
Or
a
Baby
Guardian.
Yoda.
Baby Guardian!
No, let's not get hung up on this because that's the least of its problems. But I just found that game dull, and maybe if it was on better hardware, but like even the Zelda is my favorite franchise, and I will never touch that game again. I just did not like it at all.
See,
now I'm wondering what would have happened if this had launched on like a Switch Pro or something.
It still would have been boring, but it wouldn't have had slowdown.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been like a good launch game. It wouldn't have been a good game to launch with, but at least it would have been a technical showcase, if nothing else.
Yeah.
So like to speak to like what TJ said, I did his review, his video review, and like at first I didn't like it, but his review made me want to buy it, and I did, and I played it, and like that game, for being a Mushu game taking place in the Zelda universe, has no right to be how good it is, because it seems like such an easy cash in to do. You know, oh, we'll just take Dynasty Warriors and throw Zelda characters in and we'll call it a day. You know what I mean? Like, but
I said that they did a great integration of like that game has character that is
it's the
in
most
the vein
fleshed
of Zelda.
out, well thought out, and improved Musou game
That
in
does
that
not
style.
speak highly of Musou for me, but I'm not really a fan overall. I don't know. I really wanted to like it, but I'm kind of, if I sound upset about it, it is because like this is Zelda, and I love Zelda. I love Breath of the Wild. I was really looking for, but I can't. I'm just gonna watch the cutscenes on YouTube, I think.
Well, you know what was like Zelda and Breath of the Wild, David? Ghost of Tsushima.
That's a good video game.
Yeah, it's. I mean, if that's like, if Breath of the Wild is our standard for this category, I would say like Ghost of Tsushima was like, there were a lot of games that came out that were similar to it, but it was like the only I feel like Ghost of Tsushima wasn't really like, it was trying to do its own thing, and it borrowed a lot of cool elements from Breath of the Wild, but still managed to be its own unique experience. Plus, you don't have to get off the horse to pick shit up, and there's not like.
Can we just give them an award for that? Like,
that is a big improvement. Yeah.
That, like, so many games. There's like a few things that Ghost of Tsushima did that are like quality of life improvements for open world game design. But holy crap, picking up stuff while you're on a horse, revolutionary.
Red Dead did that too.
Origins did that as well too. Yeah.
Yeah, you could not everything in Red Dead, like you couldn't like, you know, like pick up a gun off the ground or something like that, but if it was like plants, or like if you were harvesting things, your horse would actually grab it with his mouth and then like lean back up to you, and you could grab it from his mouth. So.
Yeah.
And then the other aspect, the wind.
Yeah, no, I was about to bring that up. The wind is like how you navigate through the game, you know, and it in some ways it's, people dig it because it removes the need for like a mini map. I honestly would have preferred to have a mini map with the wind and be able to take that off the HUD, because I think more options are better than less options. But as far as immersiveness goes, and like having like the wind is a character in the game. The wind is like your father guiding you, you know, and it plays into it really, really well. And if you're out there exploring and you want to get lost in the game, but you still kind of want to stay on track, you know, the wind function is a really cool feature. There's nothing like it in games, frankly. Like it's a first, I feel.
It's a good way to remove that always on screen waypoint.
Yeah.
But still give people the function of a waypoint.
Yeah.
And it's only there when you swipe to bring it there. I think it's really, there's a couple of things in that game where I'm like, man, that just makes me, I really appreciate it. Like it is pushing that genre forward in a couple of areas. It's not like groundbreaking or anything, but there are these little design tweaks that they did that really make it an enjoyable game to play. And it's fun. The core gameplay loop is just great.
Yeah, the attention to detail and the meticulousness and the way that they brought all of these things together is really, like, you're right. It's like a lot of it's nothing new per se, you know, like the combat's very similar to Arkham Asylum and stuff like that. But the way that the way that things function, the way that features are slowly introduced over time, it's fantastic. The game is just flat out fucking gorgeous. Like, so many different colors and like weather patterns, and the way that the music is just very soft and subtle, and plays into just sort of the openness of it all. Like, I can go on and on. This is still like my game of the year, personally. And there's just, I don't know, like doing Fox shrines, and it never felt like a chore. Like the way that you just kind of like, there was one point where I was just wandering and I found a Fox shrine, followed a fox to a shrine, then found a samurai duel, and then like found an NPC who needed help, like all just back to back. It was pretty incredible just to kind of traverse the world and let things happen in that game. I love the combat. The camera needed some work, admittedly, but the combat itself is really solid. And once you've wrapped your head around it, it's pretty easy to to do battle properly, I guess. So the samurai duels are a whole other thing, which is also freaking awesome. But like combat in general was super fun, easy to pick up, also very fluid. There's a lot of like fluidness to the gameplay that I really loved. I don't know, it's a really great freaking game. And I think as far as like action adventure stuff goes, like I feel like it hit the mark on so many things, more so than any other game that came out this year in this genre.
Yeah, and to elaborate on what Blake said even more, like that's a genre that's like not really been done a lot. Like there's been a lot of ninja games, but not samurai games. You know what I mean? So
I mean, as somebody who's played, Onimusha is a good example of a samurai game. That's great. Bushido Blade, like there have been samurai games, but this is definitely the first one where it's like something along the lines of a Breath of the Wild or a Spider-Man or something like that, where you have like an open world and you have all these like side things to do, and you have cats that knock shit over in your house constantly. It just struck a chord, man. Sucker Punch is so good at what they do with these types of open world games, and they had the right environment, the right style, the right approach, like everything just like struck the right chord with me at the very least. Personally, I freaking love Ghost of Tsushima, and I will be singing its praises for a long time. And then they go and they add freaking multiplayer out of nowhere, and the multiplayer is also awesome. Come on, raiding castles with your friends, that's freaking awesome. That's like some Kurosawa stuff. And let's talk about the Kurosawa mode too. Like they're doing, like, this is like, it's not just a black and white mode. It's like they actually, went to like the film foundation, like Kurosawa's family, and they worked with them to make sure that like the Kurosawa mode actually captured the essence of like his cinematography. And I don't know, that's like just a little visual bonus, so to speak. But like the fact that they took that much time just for like they could have literally just done a black and white mode, but no, they like got the lighting down, the saturation, the tone, the film gradient, like they got all that stuff in there. And I think that just sort of speaks to the meticulousness of the overall game.
Like the story dialogue stuff changes in Kurosawa mode, or is it just
the dialogue doesn't change, but the thing is you can pick English or Japanese with subtitles. So like depending on what you're doing, you can have it set up like it was a dubbed film, or like it was.
The audio does change though. Like it gets real staticky, like old school audio.
Oh, that's what you're talking about. I thought you were talking more like the dialogue. I'm sorry, but yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
Well, you mentioned tone. I was trying to figure out what specifically changed the tone of the game.
The actual, like, there's like an echoey old school film effect on the audio, like when it comes to dialogue in Kurosawa. And it's also the same of like wind. It's the same of like a lot of those, like the grass moving in the game. All of the audio is adjusted to fit, like visually, aurally,
to match a
effects-wise.
1950s film.
Like here's how far into it they went. They actually, like, it's not just black and white. They also messed with lighting effects and the way that light refracts off the grass to fit, like, sort of the gray and the gray scale and
yeah, they adjusted the tone mapping.
Yeah, to fit that.
That's more what I meant by tone, was like the tone of like things like that. So yeah, thank you, TJ. But yeah, I don't know. Is everybody ready to vote for Ghost of Tsushima?
Nope.
Oh.
Wait a minute. We waited for Josh to come back, and he didn't even give him a chance to talk yet.
But have you heard of The Last of Us 2?
Not the bird is the word.
Listen, no, I don't know. It's honestly, I don't know that I would generally consider it an action adventure game. I guess it is, but
I don't know. I've gone through some of those stretches. It's definitely action packed.
Yeah, no, it is. So the thing about Last of Us 2 that kind of makes it stand out, while like we talked about this earlier in the week, about how the gameplay really isn't like any huge improvements over the first game, but I think that that's fine because the gameplay from the first game was perfectly fine the way that it was, at least for me. But I think what makes it stand out, and I think what makes it worthy of a nomination in this category, is the fact that the action in the game just feels so visceral. It feels so real. When you take a shotgun and you put it to someone and you pull the trigger, it feels real. Like it feels like you're actually there seeing that happen. Like from the sounds, the way that it handles, everything about it just feels fantastic for a video game. Like it feels extremely immersive. The world, it all builds upon that immersiveness to pull you into the action and make you feel like you're actually part of it. And I know a lot of people kind of gave the game shit for like how long it is. And I will say that the story definitely goes on for a bit, probably longer than it should. But when it comes to the gameplay, the sequences that you go through are so well paced that it's just amazing the way that it's just, the only way I know to explain it is it's just what Naughty Dog does best when it comes to the pacing out those sequences like that between the gameplay. Like it gets you into it, it gets your heart pumping, you know, you're ready to go. Like you're, oh, yeah, shit, yeah, oh yeah, some more cultists, yeah, let's go. You know, and like you're ready for whatever's coming at you, and it all feels great. Like the AI is fantastic in the way that they hunt you down, the way that they react to what you do. Like killing their dogs like causes them to yell out, and they don't just yell out, oh no, my dog. Like they yell out a name. Like the dog has a name. You know, the other people have names. Yeah, some of them might have the same names, but it's like, you know, there are always developmental limits that you have, but still to take that extra step and kind of try to make the people that you're killing feel more than just a meat pad for your bullets, it is just so well done in The Last of Us 2 that I honestly, it's probably, I love Ghost of Tsushima. I think it's a great game, but I don't think it really did anything that any other open world action adventure game hasn't done before it. Not really. They did a lot of things right, absolutely. But I just don't.
The Last of Us Part 2 have, and I know it's not the only game to do this, like the first one did this, but I haven't had a chance to try it yet. Mm-hmm. When you're fighting like in melee combat and like you're near like a window, like is it the same kind of like how it adjusts to where you're fighting and how you're fighting? So you might bash somebody's head off the counter or throw them through the window. Like, does it still have that sort of contextual hand-to-hand combat?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I've noticed that too.
I'm sure. I was pretty sure it did, but I just.
Yeah,
you know.
It even has that some with weapons too. Like if someone comes at you and like you're close to a wall, and they've got a melee weapon, and like you manage to bat them off you. Like I've had Ellie push them against the wall, and then like shove the shotgun against them and pull the trigger.
I was just curious.
I agree with everything you said there, and you and I have talked a little bit about The Last of Us 2. I really loved the first one. It was my favorite game of that year. My issue with the pacing and length of The Last of Us 2 is that the gameplay is still solid. I'm like you, Josh. I thought it was a great mix of survival and horror. I almost think it's action adventure, but it's also kind of a survival horror game as well.
Yeah.
My problem with the encounters was like, they're so intense in that game that after doing like 2, I was like, okay, I'm kind of ready for a breather here. I'd like a cutscene or maybe some walk and talk to flesh out the characters. But a lot of times it was like encounter after encounter after encounter, and they felt the same. The only thing different was the plague field and the arrangement and configuration of the enemy types, I just kind of burned down on it, which is one of my complaints, or kind of concretizes one of my complaints, that it went on a little too long, as AAA games can. Because I enjoyed everything you spoke about, but I also got to a point where I'm like, I don't want to do another one of these right now. I'm a little tired, and the game doesn't seem to know I need a break. And The Last of Us 1 did know that. Like, it seemed cognizant of, okay, we've done 2 encounters in a row. That last one was particularly intense. Let's have a cool down period before we ramp back up. And I just feel like 2 didn't do that.
It definitely had its moments where it was very intense, like back to back, through the first several hours of the game. But like later in the game, they do a lot better job of including those cutscenes and digging deeper into things. But yeah, as far as like the action intensity goes, they definitely ramped it up from the first one. But I still personally, as someone that played through the majority of the game twice in a span of less than a week, I felt it was really well paced. And like, to have to physically force myself to go through those intensities, I didn't have the option of stepping back and saying, okay, I've had enough, you know? Like, I had a review to do. I had to get through it. And I thought it was great. I thought it was well paced. I can definitely understand the concerns that you have, for sure, 100%. The intensity is not for everyone. The game is not for everyone. I can't tell you that as a Last of Us fan, you'll go into The Last of Us 2 and you'll love it. I can't. There's so many big changes that they've made with the formula that don't really apply to this particular set of nominations, so I won't get into it. But as far as the action goes, as far as capturing the feeling of like going against these absolutely incredulous odds and like having to fight for your survival, I just don't think any game has come close to hitting it the same way that The Last of Us 2 did. At least not this year.
And to speak to Josh's point, because I didn't play the game either, but I watched the entire playthrough because, I mean, the story is very interesting to me. And, like, I mean, people said the story was controversial. I just thought it was, like, really ballsy and, like, dark and, like, grounded. Like, in terms of, like, people, you know what I mean? Like, people don't kill off main characters, and people don't explore usually the villain side of things in movies sometimes, or games. It's just, oh, he's a real bad dude. He has no redeemable qualities. His motivations are to, you know, kill everybody and take over the world. And it's so black and white in most games. This game was so like shrouded in morally gray areas that you're just like, holy crap. And the theme of like vengeance throughout the whole game was like really, really good. And like, I'm not gonna spoil the ending, but the ending is just, it's a very powerful ending in my opinion. And like, it's just, it's about the growth of 2 characters and 2 characters going down the same path.
Yeah, these are great cases you're making for best narrative game, Greg.
Yeah, I mean, this is,
I would refute that. I think that they try.
No, I'm
to be
just
more
saying,
great.
like,
like in
cases
general,
for action,
but like
game.
Ellie and Abby are both terrible fucking people. I don't really like being any of them, and we can get more into this in the narrative. But like, I did not like that aspect of it at all, and not for the reasons it's controversial. I support the representation, but the dynamic of the characters in that game didn't work for me at all. And since action adventure is kind of a weird category, because to me the action is gameplay, the adventure is a little bit of gameplay, but also how the story kind of works with the action. And I didn't like the pairing at all. I felt it was like oil on water, whereas again, I really loved the first game, not because of Joel. He's also scum. All these people are terrible. But I think it's something more we can get into in the narrative. But
yeah, I'll redact that and say that for the narrative conversation. But like to speak to David's point, yeah, I mean, well, what kept me watching the Let's Play of it was the story and where it was going to go. It definitely was not the gameplay. I would skip parts where she was running through corridors and like shooting people or zombies, or sorry,
you know, the action part.
Yeah. And then go to the next cutscene and watch what would happen.
I actually thought like the Last of Us games, and I include 2 in this, like they do stealth and horror and atmosphere really well. Like I actually prefer sneaking around and either avoiding or killing infected than I do the shootouts with humans, which I feel like aren't as engaging. Like then it just becomes a cover shooter game. But I actually like the parts, the more horror driven parts. In fact, those weirdly, I almost consider them not a cooldown, not in the denotative sense but in a nice change of pace from dealing with the humans and all the running and shooting and hiding and stuff. It's more slower paced and cerebral, I feel like. But yeah, I don't know. I'm going to defer to Josh because he's a big fan. He's played more of it than I have. I bounced off it pretty hard, though. I will say that. And it's a game I was really looking forward to this year. You know?
We got games to nominate here.
Who put to Demon Souls?
Okay, yeah.
Who put what?
I was gonna say, who put Doom Eternal on here?
I think that's one.
He has access.
I think that's one we wanted to include just to like talk about why we, as kind of a staff whose roots go to Doom and Quake, didn't really.
You know what? I'll make an argument for Doom Eternal.
Okay.
Game's got problems. Say that right out the gate. Game's got problems, but I don't think the problems stem from the action or the FPS or the adventure nature of it. I think that with Doom Eternal, id Software has done what it does great all the time. The gunplay is fun. The enemies are varied and really feel great for the most part. The platforming is a waste of fucking time. Anyone that says otherwise is nutso. Should just go play Super Mario Maker 2. You'll get plenty of platforming there, guys. Yeah, I mean, it's for an FPS game, it really brings a lot of action to the table. More action than you'll get in Call of Duty or Battlefield or any other huge FPS IP conglomerate out there. And it's just that raucous, like chaotic, unstopping nature of the action that I think makes Doom Eternal stand out in this category. Is it better than other games on this list? No, not really. But I think that when it comes to action and like giving you this adventure of like going against the hordes of hell and like taking on iconic enemies and stuff from the Doom series, like I think that id Software did a great job with it, and I think that it definitely deserves this nomination.
Yeah, I can see it being deserving of a nomination. I think I will disagree with some of what you said, though. Like, to say the combat is fun, you have to add the caveat if you play it the way they want you to play it, right? Like,
yeah,
Doom Eternal is like going into a buffet and heading for your favorite dish, only for the maitre d' to be like, no, actually, you have to eat the green beans first, whether you want the green beans or not. You know,
sure.
I actually think Doom Eternal is like a really fucking fun game if you play it the way they want you to. Like, all the enemy types are diverse, yes, but what's not diverse, in fact, what is inversely proportional to that diversity is the way you kind of have to approach them and the configuration that they're in with other enemies.
Well, like, yes.
I think Doom. I'll let you answer to that, but I think like Doom Eternal, I had more fun watching Zero Master, who's arguably like the best Doom player in the world, speedrun those games on, I think, Ultra Nightmare. I think that's the one where if you die, it's permadeath. Just because like he knows he is in that symphony, he got the sheet music and he played it the way the conductor wanted him to, basically.
No. Playing the Dance of Doom is 100% important in that game.
But go ahead.
But I don't think it's fair. I know I took off for this in the review, but I don't think it's fair to take off for it in this case, because just about every other FPS game does the same thing. The only reason it was a problem in Doom Eternal is it wasn't a problem in previous Dooms. That's the only reason it really stood out.
Honestly, I don't know. I really like David's analogy about the green beans. Like, I feel that's pretty apt for my personal experience. But the thing that got me is like, not only do you have to follow these golden paths to do it, you got a right tool for the right job it too. So like the constant switching of weapons, I felt like really broke up the pace of the fast pace of combat. You know, like I really took issue with that. And at one point, like, there was one point in the level like I think it was the cultist level, where you've got like 2 giant like spider bots to deal with and a shit ton of other enemies, and it just got chaotic and ridiculous, and I was spending most of my time running away from stuff, just trying to swap out to the right weapon so that I could actually engage like 1 or 2 specific enemies. And which
is antithetical to their push forward combat. Like, they don't want you to do that, right? They want you to push forward and be on the offensive at all times, you know?
Yeah, and like it doesn't really to me it had the opposite effect. Like, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm older and my brain isn't as fast as it used to be. Maybe I'm not as good at these games as other people. It's really hard to say, but like, it wasn't an enjoyable experience. It took away from the visceral nonstop action that I kind of was expecting from it.
Sure, I get you 100%.
Yeah,
I get you 100%.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, it's not the worst game in the world, but it's one that I pieced out on because of the way that they designed the levels.
I don't think it's a bad game. I think what they made they made pretty well. Like, Josh and I talked a lot about this.
I think it's a bad Doom game.
Yeah, like, it also, which is weird because, like, I am not one who, I didn't want Doom 2016:2020. I wanted an evolution, but, like, I guess they steered, and I wrote the long read about this, and Hugo Martin told me several times, we want you to play it the way we want you to play it, and you will be, punished harshly if you don't. That's what we decided. I'm like, all right, well, that's what you decided. I don't think that's the right choice, but that's, what you're doing. And, like, they made something very specific, whereas, like, one of the reasons, there's that meme that's gone around forever where someone shows, like, here's a Call of Duty campaign where it's just a couple, like, right angle lines on a narrative track, and then they're like, here's a map from Doom, where the whole idea is, like, it's almost a metaphor for not only could you explore anywhere, but you could do whatever you want to do to the enemies to beat them. And I just feel like Doom Eternal didn't do that. I'm not saying I want them to make the same game. I'm saying I wish they would have gone in a direction that was a bit more open-ended, because, like, I'm a Doom fan. I was prepared for change, just this wasn't change that I liked, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's a bad game. It just, I bounced off of it.
So, Davey, to your points, like, Doom games, there's a flow to them, right? Like, you feel amazing when you're running around the map, Glory killing demons, switching out weapons, killing stuff. You feel amazing. And then Doom Eternal kind of has that, but then all of a sudden you're stopping and looking around for a platform and then doing this like platforming for 30 minutes and totally breaks that
platforming.
Every time. And that's the problem with it.
Yeah.
They wanted to do something different. Like you said, they didn't want to do Doom 2016, 2020. So they were like, what can we add? And they're like, I guess platforming. And it slugs the game down so much.
It's just weird because, like, Doom 2016, I think why a lot of people loved it and felt it was not just the step, but a leap in the right direction was, okay, push forward combat. You decide how you push forward. And as long as you're doing that, you will find success. Now they're like, push forward, but also press this button, now press this button. They may as well have QTE prompts on the screen to tell you when to switch weapons and mods and fire. Like, it just feels like that to me,
This is all fine and dandy, right? Like, FPS game, we should nominate it. What if I told you there was a better FPS game that came out this year?
I would believe you.
Packed with action.
Okay.
And had some of the coolest environments where you could engage with enemies however you felt like, David. Would that be something you're interested in?
I am very interested in that.
Now, what if it was in the Half-Life universe?
Holy shit. Half-Life, also, if everyone knows that franchise is dead, what you talking about?
Half-Life Alyx is the best action-adventure game to come out this year. It is outstanding. The gunplay is really fun. Once again, I'm going to bring up the environment design. There's scenes where there's a car that you can use as cover, right? But no, you can open the door and use the door of the car as cover. You can climb up a ladder to fight this guy at the top of the ladder, but guess what? You can hold the ladder with one hand and shoot with your other hand without going all the way over the thing. Like, there's all these little things about how this game is designed that you can do things that you've never really done in an FPS game before. And there's none of this, you have to do it this way. That's what's cool about the game. I'm going to play through it again because I had to play through it really quickly for review, and I want to go back and savor the flavor and go back and see these little details that I can holy crap. Even just watching other people play it, I'm like, damn it, I missed that the first time. That's different. That's quite the opposite of the Doom Eternal philosophy of this is the way. There is no way in Half-Life Alyx. It's just go play in this universe and figure it out yourself.
This year is significant for both those franchises because they've gone head-to-head before in 2004 with Doom 3 and Half-Life 2. and they both took very different approaches. Doom 3 was like, this is an action survival horror game where you're going to fight maybe 3 enemies at a time, and Half-Life 2 was like, hey, here's a physics gun. Why don't you shoot that urinal at the zombie, you know? I like the open-endedness. Let me ask you this, because I haven't had a chance to really dig into this game yet, but I'm going to this weekend. 2 things. One, you really turned me on to Donkey's videos this year. I think that guy does a great job of delivering commentary on games through subtext, like what he's really saying between what he's actually saying. When he kind of like makes little jokes and complaints about things, that's his way of saying, oh, this is kind of an annoying mechanic. He kind of struggled with the movement you have to do to reload weapons. And I also, like he said, like the combat looks kind of slow at points, because it's not like you have a keyboard and mouse where you can just like spin around and rocket jump. Like the enemies can be kind of slow and almost dumb in a way that makes it a little less fun. And I'm not saying it is. I wonder if you could speak to that.
I think if they made the enemies faster in Half-Life Alyx, you'd poop your pants. I think that it was designed in a way to prevent people from pooping their pants.
I think it was too, but it also seems like it might be kind of a restriction. Like that's one thing that VR developers are still trying to figure out.
Think about being in VR though. You're not. Your thumbstick locomotion is an option in this game, but VR you tend to be stationary in between movements. So it's one of these things where you're stationary, you're in your perspective, you look around, and you're like, okay, there are these 3 enemies. Also, like the enemies in the Half-Life universe, some of them are faster. Headcrabs are faster than like those more zombified enemies, you know? So it's like, I do think that the enemies are somewhat slower than the like Half-Life 2, but I don't think it's so drastically slower that it makes it less of an action experience. And then they do things.
If you want it to play like Doom, the person inside the headset literally has to be Doom guy, like in real life almost, for some of that quick twitch shit and all that stuff, which is just, you know, you're kind of asking a lot of the design.
You're also asking a lot of the player.
You're asking a lot of the player, but we're speaking in binary terms. I'm not saying it has to be Twitch Fest arena shooter from 1999 or really, really slow. I'm saying I wonder if there's a middle ground that would have been possible.
Well, and I would step in here and say, like, it is action by definition, but like I would probably be more inclined to agree with you, Asif, if you had made the argument for Half-Life Alyx as a puzzle game. Everything in Half-Life Alyx is so much more methodical than every other VR game I've played.
Yeah, I've always considered Half-Life to be like, I know there's a lot of action in it, but it's always struck me as more as a puzzle series.
Yeah, and like
the only reason I even brought it up is that I went to Steam, I looked at what Valve calls it in the genre, and they call it an action adventure game.
But even the combat in that game feels like a puzzle in real time.
Absolutely. I think that that's why I like Half-Life so much. It's a cerebral game. And instead of being a cerebral game like Doom Eternal, where there's only one solution, it's a cerebral game where all sorts of crazy emergent gameplay can be the solution. And that's what I think's magical about it.
Yeah, like it is pretty good as far as like it elicits very visceral reactions.
Like, have you been more scared by a game this year?
Yes, there is one occurrence in which like I was utterly and totally skeeved, and we'll get there. But like right behind it is Half-Life Alyx. Like there are so many occurrences in that game that are also just unsettling.
Do you feel like it's more in the horror puzzle genre than?
I just feel like it's more in the puzzle genre in general. Like it is so like this is something that I feel bad that we didn't talk about during the puzzle conversation.
I didn't even bother because like there weren't going to be any votes for it in there because it's something where you literally have to do the puzzles to understand. These puzzles were made for VR. They were made for someone with a headset on their head. trying to explain that in words is very difficult. I tried to do it in my review. I've tried to do it multiple times, but it's one of those things where I'm going to just straight up show people during our live stream coming up. These are here's the moment that really showcases a puzzle that you couldn't do anywhere other than in VR, anywhere other than with hand presence and a headset, you know. So like, there's stuff like that, and yes, but what I think it makes this a really fun adventure game is the balance of here's enemies you have to fight, here's a scary hallway, here's this. Oh, the game gives you a gun and a flashlight. Oh no, the power's out. Like, that moment to me is still the best action I've experienced all year in any video game.
I think it also speaks to the fact that, like, because you're in VR, it's different than playing a console or PC game without a headset on. Like, maybe if you're in the middle of, like, Amnesia or something, you might pause to go to the bathroom or check your phone. But in Alyx, like, you're kind of in for a penny, in for a pound. It's not easy to, like, take a break by, like, unstrapping the headset.
No,
and stuff.
I really
you
only
feel like
took,
you're there and you can't just. Yeah,
it was more like after the chapter was done, okay, I take the headset off and take a break. But otherwise, no, it was, you're in it, you're immersed, and you're not looking to push pause. You're never going to be like, oh. But yeah, you do. I audibly screamed a couple times while playing that game alone at the office, and I'm sure it looked ridiculous from the outside world, but I've never felt that level of intensity in action. And yes, it may be slower than a flat screen FPS would be where you have keyboard and mouse input, but I think the input devices inform that design. I don't think it really takes away from it.
Sure.
But yeah, I just wanted to nominate it. I'm going to nominate it for like everything today.
It's fun. I'll make a case for Demon Souls, and I'll try to keep it short. I think it's a great action adventure for a reason I spoke to earlier, and that the integration of the action and adventure is, you don't have to pay any attention to it, but the game is so much rewarding if you do. You start out as this warrior who came to Boletaria because you heard about treasure. You die, you get trapped in the Nexus. Haha, joke's on you. And you start out really kind of frustrated because you're weak. But what this game does is something that other games like BioShock have done very well, where it actually makes you think about why you play video games a certain way. The moment you start achieving victories in that game, you get this rush because you finally overcame this great barrier, this challenge. And so you start leveling up, and that makes you want to keep getting stronger because you want to chase that rush again. You want that feeling. And so you're killing more and more demons. You're killing more and more of everything. And by the time you get to, there's a boss at the end of the swamp world. Her name is Maiden Estrella, and she has a knight with her named Garl Vinland. And it's a weird kind of boss fight because you enter this sort of shrine that's filled with a lot of poopy water, best poopy water of 2020, I would say. And you realize that Maiden Estrella is just kind of talking to you like, leave this place. You're just kind of getting in the way of what I'm trying to do. And you're like, oh yeah, well you're evil and I'm good, so I'm going to come kick your butt. And then Garl Vinland, he's just standing there on this narrow walkway blocking your path. He's just holding his shield up waiting for you. And he has this big-ass giant hammer. You can get around him, but killing him is a bit more rewarding because his last words are, Maiden Estrella, I'm sorry, I have failed you. You walk up to Maiden Estrella, and by this point in the game, you're probably a badass. You've got a ton of great weapons, you're really high level, you're kitted out in all sorts of awesome armor. You're the kind of at the exact opposite point of where you started. You're no longer the prey, you're the hunter. And Estrella explains very succinctly that, look, this swamp is toxic typified. I'm the only thing holding the toxicity back from just becoming widespread and killing everything. But, oh, I understand. You want your demon soul. So if you're going to kill me, just kill me. And you kind of realize at that point, wow, two things. I am the bad guy here because you are a demon, but you're doing something good or trying to. But also, I'm fine with that because, yeah, fuck you. I do want your soul. I do want to get stronger. And so you kill her, but you feel a little bad doing it. At this point, you're near the end game, and if your character alignment is at a certain point, you'll meet an NPC who wants you to assassinate the characters you have freed and fought beside for the rest of the game. What Demon Souls does differently and much, much more impressively than its sequels is when you meet a character in Dark Souls, like Solaire, this really happy, kind of jovial knight, he doesn't fight you in a corporeal form. You have to summon him. He's a soul. He's kind of like this two-color golden knight. And when he dies in a boss fight, it's like, oh, no big deal. I'll just like leave and summon you again. In Demon Souls, when you free characters and they appear to fight beside you, they're alive. You want to keep them alive, and you develop this bond with them, this rapport that makes you feel closer to them because you just went through something huge together. Then you reach this point where this NPC is telling you, don't give me that look, we have work to do. I want you to kill Bior of the Twin Fangs, who's like the most badass and friendly knight in the game. This dude is just joy personified. And you're like, wow, I like Bior, but I really want more souls. By the end of that game, like that game, the title has always confused people. Like, why is it Demon Souls singular possessive? The demon is you. You become what you came to Volataria to fight. And you don't just become that, but the maiden in black who's been leveling you up has been waiting for someone to take the place of the old one. And now she has her new demon. And she takes you to the old one to kill him so that you can basically take his place and be the scourge of the universe. And the progression of that in that game is something that has always stuck with me in the same way that BioShock's Would You Kindly has stuck with me. I've never seen any game do the holy shit, I'm the bad guy, or I'm the problem here, as well as Demon Souls has. I don't think any other Soulsborne game has lore that comes close, because again, you don't feel like you like Solaire because everyone likes Solaire. Praise the sun, like it's a meme, it's fun to say. But the connections you have to Demon Souls characters, and then the ruthlessness with which you just kind of say sorry and kill them to get more powerful, is just such a cool way to show you how far you've come and how low you've sank. As far as the action part, all of this happens as you learn the games, you learn the weapons, you learn things like, hey, if I'm in a narrow tunnel, I don't want a weapon that I have to swing because I'll hit the wall. I should look for thrust weapons. And it all ties into and plays into you learning more and becoming more powerful. You becoming the master of your environment. You're freaking Batman by this point, but you don't even need a utility belt because everything around you is your weapon and will just succumb to your will because you're just becoming more and more powerful. It's really fucking great. It's my favorite integration. Like, to me, it's what video games can and should be, instead of lots of walls of text and endless cinematics. Like, that is why video games have such cool storytelling. It's something you can only experience by like shoving the author aside and say, nah, I've got this. I love it. It's one of my favorite action and adventure games of all time.
And I would like to add that that's all a 2009 argument, and I don't know that it applies here.
Sure, but
that game.
It is. I think if anything, what the remake does is like, it just makes you feel these connections more keenly because the audio visual composition is just that much more immersive. But yeah, like this is a remake. I still think since this game came out in 2020, like I said, I haven't seen anything as good since, and that's still the case right now with this new game.
I mean, I've watched people play that game on the remaster, and I watched my friend play it on PS3. I was at a different part, but I never saw any remnants of like a story. It just looked like a big empty world where with corridors full of enemies that kill you in one hit.
It's not a story because there's a ton of story.
There's
okay. Like I said, it could have been I was watching like the wrong part. You know?
If you just have to look for it. It's not a story that's in your face, but
it's not a conventional video game story. Right?
Yeah,
I like that about it, though.
Yeah, and I love that about it. Yeah,
that's always kind of been my issue with it, is that Dark Souls and Demon Souls and Bloodborne and even Sekiro have always felt like a story that happened just before you arrived, and you're just seeing the fallout of all of it. It just kind of feels like you're the cleanup crew every step of the way.
Isn't that like a point for it though? Like the adventure part is that they're not just giving you the story in cutscenes. Like,
So-
you were
Yeah,
actually
I mean, it
going
was-
on the adventure to get the story.
And that's the thing too. Like these games are actually, my analogy for them is they're like archaeological digs. This isn't like Doom where you're gonna find a health kit in hell because it's a video game and you probably need some health. When you find a body in a Souls game, someone died there, and the items that you find were what they carried, and they have a story, and you can piece it together, or you can ignore it. That's to me defines, and this isn't really semantics. It's the difference between story and lore. For me in games, story is bad because I don't want to sit and watch a movie or read a book. If I want to do that, I'll watch a movie or read a book. The lore is something that you can piece together, but also that happens to you and also because of you as you play. And I think Demon Souls to date for me is the highest form of that in a video game.
I mean, if we're gonna talk about like connections to characters and stuff like that, man, I'm gonna have to say like Ghost of Tsushima did it better.
Do you have to kill them, or are you given a choice to kill them?
Yes, actually. As a matter of fact, at the very end of the game, you have to kill your father figure or let him live. But also, like, there's side stories that involve stuff like that. But yeah, you have to kill your best friend and your father figure in Ghost of Tsushima. And it's extremely much, especially because like everything culminates to that final battle with your retainer. But then there were also just like side quests. There was a side quest where you run into like your old like nursemaid, right? And it really got to me emotionally because it's an older woman slowly dying and dealing with dementia and stuff like that. And I've actually experienced that with family members. So like going through that in the game like gave me a huge emotional connection to it. You know,
yeah, that's definitely valid. I guess the Dark Souls, Souls games are different because they don't tell you this is your nursemaid. The connection to the character is kind of what you make it, which again is like it's a story that you're kind of defining and shaping as you play. But does sound really cool.
I understand that. No, I get that. It's cool that you're defining your narrative to be what you want it to be, but it's not necessarily in the game. It's just what you've made of it.
I think you guys are bringing up narrative too much for this category.
Well, and like let me go back to something really quick because like I feel like it got pushed to the side before I could really talk about like. And I know like there are a lot of issues with Age of Calamity, but a lot of those issues I hear were like the first level didn't catch me because this isn't my style of game, and I'm not going to dismiss that because that is valid. Like this isn't the kind of game that everybody cares to play. However, I will say that like the amount of like mechanical like the way that they worked the mechanics into these characters to like make them individualized goes beyond any Musu game that I've played, and actually I would say even beyond a lot of action adventure games that I've played. Every Musu game has characters that have their own combos. Age of Calamity goes beyond that by like giving them actual like mechanics that are individual to each of those characters. Rivali is a bird archer. He can fly. So he has combos that are specific to like being on the ground, or you can press a button that makes him take to the air, and his combos change entirely due to that. Urbosa uses lightning, and so she's got a charge gauge that like she can empower her attacks to and like extend them into doing these massive lightning attacks, and that's something only she can do. Daruk, like he can summon pillars of magma at any point, and then like in the middle of his combos use a button to like suddenly make all those pillars of magma explode. There's even and I have to talk about this because I couldn't talk about it during the review because I was on embargo rules. Hestu, the Maraca Korak, is a playable character in the game, and like,
seriously?
Yes. And you know what they did with him? They make collecting Korok seeds matter because that's how you power him up.
They don't just make it a thing that you have that's just like tossed in like they do in Breath of the Wild.
What are you talking
I'm
about?
not looking through this entire island for freaking Korok seeds.
Journey
What are
over
you talking
destination. Journey over destination. Also.
What are you talking about? That's how you
Giant ass world. I'm like, I'm
inventory.
not looking for a seed in a giant big ass island.
So that also returns. You can use Korok seeds with Hestu to increase the amount of weapons any character can carry.
Yeah.
But you can also use those Korok seeds to make Hestu stronger in combat.
Okay,
And that
that's
is
good.
so cool to me that they actually incorporated that into her Hestu, because the whole point of Hestu is that his maracas won't shake as well because he doesn't have Korok seeds in him.
Mhm.
So you give him the Korok seeds and he becomes a stronger character in combat. It's so fun. And the implementation of like not just Link having the Sheikah slate, but every character having the Sheikah slate and every one of them using it differently. Like I gotta talk to that too, because we know about the Sheikah slate at this point. You have the bombs, you have the magnesis, you have the stasis. Like they could so easily just make those things be normal, and they are for Link if you're playing as Link. But like when Urbosa uses stasis on the Sheikah slate, she locks characters up and then does like a swirling attack that that just blasts them away when the stasis state ends. When Zelda uses the spirit bomb, she doesn't just throw a bomb. She actually calls in like a giant spider bomb that like walks around throwing little bombs out, and you control that spider bomb until you choose not to. And then you can use her special ability to make all of the bombs that that thing has planted explode at once. I love the personality and individuality that they poured into not only these characters conveying their story, but also the way that these characters play mechanically. I think that even if you're not into Musu, this is like, it would be dismissive to say that like this doesn't bring something of value to action adventure as a whole for how much they poured into like how not only who those characters are, but how they play.
I'll go back to it. You talked me into going back to it. I almost feel like, and I'm the last person to really bag on the Switch because I think it does what it does very well, but this is the first time I've played a Switch game, particularly a first, I guess in this case, kind of second party game that's made me say like, wow, I wish I could play this on another platform that doesn't have so many technical hiccups. You know what I mean?
For sure. And like, I only played that game for like maybe 5% of my total playtime in handheld mode. So I didn't run into slowdown as much.
I play 100%, like 95% docked.
But you're right. Like I did run into like graphical hitches when it came to like some of the more bombastic attacks. But even then, I have to speak to some of the bombastic attacks because these characters all have like finishing moves they do to certain enemies when they're at a certain state. And sometimes the finishing move changes either based on the state of the character or based on who the enemy is. And so there's kind of just like so much to explore in the way they fight and the way that certain enemies react to them that I really love what they did to that game.
I just want to speak to Asa's point. I think the reason a lot of us are bringing up narrative is because action adventure, at least to me, like the definition is like, how does the action tie into the adventure, aka the journey of the game, and what can happen during that. That's why I speak to Demon Souls, and I thought TJ and you both made good arguments for your games. Like in Half-Life Alyx, I feel like the action adventure is being in that world and the things you can do and how that makes it part of your journey through it. So that's why I feel like a lot of us are bringing up narrative, because those two nouns and adjectives, I guess, in the title like are kind of symbiotic. Almost.
Yeah. No, speak to David's like I don't hate a lot of games, but Demon Souls is definitely one of them, and I'll explain why. Because for the reasons David likes them is the same reasons I hate them. I think the reason why it's such a major game in the industry in general is because it came out at a time where people had gone the power fantasy route for almost every single game. Like, I mean, you were this god, like, you know, Master Chief killing everything in one hit. Like, nothing could kill you. It was very difficult to be killed. You were just this awesome, like, powerful creature. And then, you know, then Demon Souls came out and you weren't that. You know, it was a throwback to games we hadn't even seen since the NES. I mean, games like Ninja Gaiden or the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles,
Those weren't hard games. Those are cheap games. But especially the first Ninja Turtles on NES, like in Mega Man 1, like holy shit, it's a miracle that series ever got a sequel. But like I won't argue with you that Demon Souls came out at what I think was an inflection point in the industry. However, I think it's reductive to say that's why it's been successful. I mean, like I think most people, it's safe to say, play through those games once and they look forward to them because that sense of adventure and action that you get from all the weapons feeling different and controlling differently, to your first journey through the world and how your journey comes to define it for you and what you glean from it, what you take from it, is pretty damn special. Also, you know, those games aren't hard. They just punish recklessness. You have to just be careful and patient. The difficulty of them is way overblown, and in fact, I think it's turned off a lot of people who would otherwise be open to trying them. But it's, you know, that's just my opinion.
It's funny because the viewpoint from mine is like I've played Dark Souls 2 for about 10 to 20 hours, and that game, I thought for a minute I was like, oh, okay, I keep dying at this boss. I was like, I think it was the dragon at the bridge. I'm like, okay, so I just need to go through this corridor until I'm strong enough to beat him and keep grinding and leveling up. And it wasn't working, and then by the time I finally killed the dragon, it felt that it took me so long that it wasn't a sense of accomplishment or or a success. It was like annoyance, especially the item he dropped. I was like, I can't even use this. I was just like, this is dumb. But that was just me. That's one person's perspective on the game.
I know the dragon and the location you're talking about. Dark Souls 1 is an open world style game. You're not even really meant to fight him at that point. You can kill him.
He's on Dark Souls 2, I thought.
He said Dark Souls 2 is... Oh, Dark Souls 2?
Yeah.
Dragon on the Bridge. Did you play Scholar the first? I guess we're getting into the weeds here, but
it's the one that flies down and lands on top of the turret, right? And blasts that entire area if you try to pass through it.
Yeah, someone was telling me you had to go to the top of the tower and jump down to stab him, like to get like a bonus damage or something.
Oh, that's Dark Souls 3.
That's Dark Souls 3. What system did you play this on?
360.
I think the message I'm getting here is that these all look the same to Greg at this point.
Yeah. Well, they can. I mean, I guess, if you feel that way, that's how you feel.
I would say, David, that it's not just Soulsborne in general isn't just a game that punishes recklessness, but it's also a game that punishes first timers. And I think that's kind of a turnoff because to your credit, the dragon in Demon Souls, it tells you exactly what it's going to do by the time you reach it. It's going to blow fire all over that bridge. But then there are other things where, like, if you weren't like paying attention, you should use the messages in that game because that's how you figure out what's coming next. But there are so many things that are built into that game where if you walk through a doorway, like, it just swings on you right away. And I think that's sort of indicative of the fact that it takes a certain level of experience that you have to gain by playing and failing in it. And I think that's also a turnoff to a lot of people.
I understand how it can be, but that's kind of the point of those games. Shit, the marketing slogan for Dark Souls was prepare to die, which is like, hey, death is a lesson. The tutorial in Demon Souls kills you even if you beat the first boss because they're teaching you like death is part of this adventure. You know, you're not going to get things right on the first try.
It's the nihilist Arby's of video games.
Well, is there any other nominations in this category?
Hades.
Yeah, I put Hades.
I would put Hades up here.
Yeah, that makes sense.
In terms of action, and in terms of like how many guys they throw at you, and how you have to start to change your tactics a little bit around Elysium, like, I would definitely put it up there as action.
Hades is a perfect example of what David was talking about, where dying is not just acceptable, but also can be good.
It's part of the game loop.
They literally made it part of the game loop.
I think it's a more accessible version of that, though, if I'm being honest. Like, I didn't feel as much discouragement dying in Hades as I did in Demon Souls.
The pacing is very different, but I get where you're coming from. I get where you're coming from.
Yeah. I felt no discouragement dying in Hades because, like, no matter where you die, no matter how many times you die, like, your story keeps moving forward, and I think it's amazing the way they implemented that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
and
did
there's
it
a
better
light,
than any other roguelike.
There are so
there's
many.
a lightheartedness to it too that like keeps it casual. I think.
There are so many distinct triggers in that game based on how you die, who kills you, or where you die, that like the story moves forward regardless of how you do it.
And I love how your strategies like change depending on the weapon drops you get. Like,
Yep.
because you'll get different drops like through each run, or depending on what weapon you use, and your tactics will have to change like depending on the boss you encounter and depending on like sometimes you'll get like there's supposed to be a set number of bosses you get. Like you're gonna get like one of the Furies in Tartarus, you're gonna get like the Bone Hydra, but occasionally like you go in and you go, okay, all right, so I'm gonna face this boss again, come out, and they throw you someone different, and it's like, wait, what just happened here?
The boss
and now you have to
changes.
change your tactics on the fly. Like it's
I'm also willing to bet like everybody that's on this call that has played that game, and possibly everybody who's played Hades in general, has a certain set of boons and upgrades that they favor.
Mhm.
Yes.
As they go through the game. Like for me, it's shield, and then going with Ares and getting doom buffs on my weapons that cause damage after I hit the enemy.
Mhm.
Hangover damage with Dionysus. It's just the best.
I do like that aspect of it a lot. Hades is a really great nomination.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's an excellent game.
Also,
And-
Theseus can suck it. Hate
Yeah.
that guy.
But yeah, I think what they did with the core loop of every time you die, there's your dad there to troll you.
There's also Cerberus there to like
Yeah.
pick your spirits up,
But
Best job-
it's just excellent.
Best dog
Even
Cerberus.
You walk by your bedroom every time you go back out there, and you can't your
Yeah.
bed's there, but you can't use it. I think they do a lot that like most roguelikes fail to do, where that sense of loss that you feel when you die in Demon Souls, for instance, it's not as drastic in Hades. But
And
Hades
speaking
also
to
has
it-
this really good progression system
Yes.
where some of your progress carries over and some of it doesn't. Like, sure, whatever weapons you get along the drops, they're not there when you restart. But those purple points and like the things that you unlock in the mirror, like I think the structure of that is what makes this game just so damn enjoyable to keep
And
playing.
Speaking to it as an action game, God, does it intensify in those last two worlds? Like Elysium on, it just goes nuts.
Mhm.
The
Yeah, I
poison-
feel like it's action packed.
I've died to the poison. Oh, I was so mad when I died to the poison near the end.
the poison in the satyr rooms
Yes.
is so frustrating in so many ways, because you can be having the best run of your life, but if you get caught up in poison and can't make it to like a remedy
No,
fountain,
that was me.
it will ruin your day.
Okay, so I think we've nominated everything, right?
No, we didn't nominate Final Fantasy VII.
As an action RPG,
I think it's an action game, because here's the thing, like, I'm not going to vote for Game of the Year because I fucking hate that ending so much. And I don't think it's going to win Best RPG because I think Cyberpunk's going to dominate that in general, just in terms of mechanics. So I'm going to nominate it for Best Action Adventure Game.
I think there's definitely a lot of action components to it, but you're also talking to the guy who played it in classic mode, so I approached it as an RPG.
Yeah, that's an
God.
RPG.
Yeah, I think it's an RPG.
Well, like, if you consider that an RPG, then Demon Souls is an RPG because you're still
No,
building.
it's not.
You're still building a character and spending points in it, and like
At what point is there is there an ATB menu?
it's not a
Is
turn-based
there
game, though.
like
It's really- the
turn-based?
combat's
No. Greg,
Are
see,
there
that's the thing.
cutscenes? Do
You're
I have to
getting
dance? Do I have
into
to get a dress?
you're
Is
getting
Chadley
too
in Demon Souls?
you're getting too deep into these
Might be.
archaic definitions. Like, if it's not next you'll say, oh, it's an RPG because it's from Japan. If it's
You
not
can
from
argue
Japan,
that every video
like,
game ever is an RPG.
yeah.
Mario
I
is
don't
an
even know how to
RPG.
define it anymore. Is it building a character?
Don't
is it
worry
like it's so
about it.
weird how to
It's-
define an
don't-
RPG?
don't
like
worry. about
RPG stands for role-playing game.
You're playing
Correct.
a role in a game, Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean-
it doesn't have to be turn-based to be
No, but
an RPG.
by all
I'm speaking to
definitions,
Greg. I'm
Final
speaking to
Austin,
Greg.
hit the gavel. Let's go.
Final Fantasy VII is an RPG. It is an action RPG, sure. No question. But in this group, I don't think it's got a chance. So let's vote.
All right. I'll go. I Ghost of Tsushima, baby, all the way, 100%. I love that game. I think it's one of the best games in general to come out this year. Freaking gorgeous. I think it hits all the marks of what I want out of an action adventure game in this category. It's vast, but it's optional, and there's just so much like natural discovery and unique, innovative UI stuff. I don't know. I could go. I've already gone on about this game, but
Yeah, you've
I'll
already
just-
made
yeah.
your case.
Yeah, Ghost of Tsushima gets my vote.
Okay.
I was so going to be on board with Blake and say Ghost of Tsushima, but
Then do it, Ozzy! Be on board!
But then TJ brought up Hades, and all the memories came flooding back of those boss battles, those damn repetitive boss battles with Theseus, where I was like, I'm getting a little closer each time.
All
So
right.
I'm going with Hades.
You guys have fun reviewing New World.
It's never coming out because Amazon
No.
wants to make it.
I'm also going with Hades because that game is pure action adventure and like a joy every step of the way.
It
I'll
really
see.
It's the mechanics in Hades are like so, in my opinion, so important for roguelikes in general because somebody finally found a way to make roguelike death less frustrating, and that's like, who the fuck else can say that?
Give it best
Blizzard.
roguelike. Keep it out of.
Roguelike death?
So Donovan
Blizzard,
and Sam
Diablo?
are not
Yeah.
here, but I'm pretty sure Sam would vote for Demon Souls.
He put his votes into E4, I think, or Josh did.
He did
Yeah,
not.
he sent some of them over, but he
I don't
didn't.
think he
He
actually
did
didn't
not
do action
include
game.
one for this, but
Yeah.
knowing
Okay.
Sam, I'm pretty sure he'd pick Demon Souls.
I will
Probably.
vote for Hades. As Chris said, my argument for Demon Souls, like I stand by it, but you know, it is a remake of the game that came out in 2009. Asif really had me swayed to Half-Life Alyx, but then I've been playing Hades. I've been really enjoying it, and it kind of does exactly what I feel like the intersection of this genre and all of its permutations can do.
Mhm.
So yeah, Hades for me.
Y'all
There's a
sleep-
dating sim element in Hades that's really funny.
Well, you get into
Yes.
RPG territory.
We'll
Don't
get
talk
to-
about
we'll get to
dating
that.
sims
We'll
or
get-
talents or.
We will get to that
playing
later.
roles.
Okay, Steve?
I'm going with Ghost of Tsushima.
Smart guy.
Chris?
Smart guy, that Steve.
I guess I'll vote for. I want to go for Half-Life Alyx.
Bill?
This is probably the toughest one for me so far. I've changed my mind like 3 times as we've been talking. However, I've been loving Ghost of Tsushima.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going with Ghost of Tsushima.
Very good game.
Oh, yeah.
Josh, you sticking with Last of Us?
I made a case for the game. Doesn't mean it's my vote.
Okay.
I still think it does a lot of things better than any other game on the list. But like David said, as far as like kind of encapsulating what action adventure means to me, I think I'm gonna side with Chris and go with Half-Life Alyx.
We are
Oh,
all
who
over
did
on
who
this
did
one.
Kitty vote for? I hear Kitty.
Emo did not like that vote at all.
Greg?
He's a Ghost
I'm
of
gonna go with
Tsushima guy.
Hyrule Warriors because
Oh my god.
I'm trying to think about what separates. I'm really not me. You bring up a good point. What separates an RPG from an action adventure game? Like that's an interesting debate. Not to have one here, but that's just an interesting conversation to have later.
Okay, well,
If I had remembered Hades, I would have gone with Hyrule.
I'm gonna vote for Half-Life, and that leads us to a tie.
3-way tie?
No, there's a tie between Ghost of Tsushima. Actually, no, sorry, I counted wrong. 1, 2.
Spence is killing us.
Yeah, we have a 3-way tie.
Oh snap!
Wow.
All right, who's the tiebreaker here?
Hold on. Yeah, we have 3 votes for Ghost of Tsushima, 3 votes for Hades, and 3 votes for Half-Life Alyx. So it comes down to
Let's see who Donovan voted for.
Yeah, should we?
Donovan voted for
Donovan
The
will-
Last of Us
Yeah,
2.
he voted The Last of Us
Oh.
too.
Oh.
And
Well, but now if he were here, he would have to change his vote
he
to
would,
one of
yeah,
these 3, right?
it would
So-
come down to those 3 games. So
Do any of us need to change our vote?
Greg,
Me.
Greg, what's your
Greg, you have to
verdict?
pick between these 3
Greg,
games.
Bobola, Bubby.
Pick
Greg,
between
don't you-
the 3 games.
Don't you love it when I give you these awesome creative documentaries to make? I know you do.
Demon Souls. No, wait, I can't
That's
say
not
that.
one of the games.
Oh shit!
Oh my god! you killed me.
Greg, remember Ghost of Tsushima? How gorgeous it is. How much fun.
Yeah,
it
but this isn't best art.
just how what an action adventure it was.
See,
Hold
all
on.
of these games make really good cases. Is the thing, right? I think that it's great to see a samurai open world game. It's something you don't really see that often, and it's done like slightly differently and has a really good like pace to it and gameplay mechanics. And then at the same time, like Half-Life Alyx gets shafted because the install base for the VR headset is so low that not a lot of people get to play it, which is a shame.
And then there's
you know-
Hades. Like, how many people hate roguelikes, and yet everybody loves this game?
Hold
See,
on.
I'm not
can
voting
I
for Hades
just-
because like you can build your character, you get different weapons. There are like set type of cutscenes in it, so like, and we already argued that that was an RPG, so I'm not gonna vote for action adventure game.
Did you just say we don't get that many open world games?
No, samurai open world games.
Okay.
Like it's a genre that's not really explored a lot. That
Greg, make a
time
choice.
period.
It's your vote,
Yes.
Craig.
You know, I'm gonna have to go honestly.
Tough.
You know, Trevor recently got Half-Life Alyx on his PC, and he's playing with it, and he can't stop talking about it, and he's really hard on games, so I'm gonna have to go with Half-Life Alyx. I think that game deserves more recognition because the install base
Wow.
fucking sucks.
By the skin of his teeth, and because Greg couldn't vote for Final Fantasy or Hyrule Warriors, Half-Life Alyx is the Shacknews best action adventure game of 2020.
Oh my god, I don't think
Zachary
I've
is
been
tied
Oh
on.
my
again.
god, I haven't even played the game, but I'm furious.
I
Everyone
fucking
made
love
really
Ghost
good
of Tsushima.
points.
I'm
Everyone
allowed
made
to
I
really
have
haven't
good
my
even
points
own.
except for
played the
Hades.
game, but I can tell you that Half-Life Alyx is definitely not awesome.
Well, I didn't have to
Play
play
the
the game to tell
fucking
you.
game.
I don't gotta tell you how much I love Ghost of Tsushima.
I know that you love Ghost of
Play
Tsushima.
Half-Life
You made a
Alyx,
great
man.
case for it. You almost won, but you
Yeah.
lost. There's no recount
lost.
here. There's
I
no
get it.
cases going to.
I don't have to.
court. This is
Election
This is
fraud.
not Atlanta. This is not
fraud.
Philadelphia. This is Shacknews. You just saw it. 4-3. Half-Life Alyx
Just
wins.
slam the gavel.
Gavel,
I
gavel,
signed a
gavel.
piece
Again.
of paper
Again.
saying I would go to
Again.
jail if I lied.
Notice I
Overruled.
Half-Life.
I signed a piece. Did you sign a piece of paper that said you would go to jail?
Half-Life. You notice I hit it 3 times?
All right, I'm out.
Oh.
Clear.